Right. What's happened with the Minerals Management Service is that the agency has changed names to the Bureau of Energy and Management of the Environment or something like that, the BOE. And they've gotten a makeover. They're going to be split into 3 separate bureaucracies so that they act as a watchdog on one another. So this probably wouldn't stop the favors and the lobbying. You don't see that happening.
No, and I think that's a very good point you're making. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the problem with public housing. We used to have high-rise public housing. Now, the problem with public housing, as Jane Jacobs tells us, is, one, they don't allow any commerce there, which screws up the whole society. And secondly, they have these income cutoffs so that if you make more than a certain amount of money, you're not qualified. And if you get a raise, you have to leave the public housing projects, which means that most of the public housing projects are headed by women who are unable to control the teenage boys. And that's the problem with public housing. But what these idiots derive from this is they said, well, the problem with public housing is that it's high-rise. So we've got to have low-rise public housing, which is ridiculous. Because you have the same old income cutoffs and you have the same old lack of commerce, which are the real causes. And you're quite right. If you break it up from NNS to BOE and you have 3 BOEs that each look at each other, they'll all be captured by each other.
Right.
You're quite right.
So another thing, even if they were very, very moral and they did the right thing and they believed in their job and they're serving the people, can a government body really, truly keep up with the technology of the oil industry, some of the newest and most complicated technologies that exist?
You see, what you really have is the problem of central planning. And Ludwig von Mises, an Austrian economist, more than anyone else showed that the problem with central planning is it's insuperable. You can't rationally plan your way out of a paper bag. And even if we get rid of the superficial problems of capture and the cocoa point about the initiation of these regulations, suppose you had regulators who were impenetrable, who were not bribable, they were robots or whatever, human beings that they were just highly moral and they would never be suborned by gifts or anything like that. Still, they're not part of the market. It's only when you're part of the market and you're part of the price system that you can have a rational economy. These people have no way of telling what is appropriate. For example, because of left-wing environmentalists, BP had to drill in very, very deep water. I think the water is about a mile deep. Mm-hmm. They would have preferred to drill closer to the shore where the water is, say, 25 feet deep. And look, if you have a problem and you're dealing with 25 feet deep of water, it's a lot easier to solve than if you're dealing with 6,000 feet of water, which is roughly a mile. Well, how would the regulators know what proportion of oil drilling should be done close to shore in shallow water or deep out in deep water? Even if they're moral and they wouldn't accept bribes or they wouldn't be suborned or they wouldn't be captured, this is an entrepreneurial decision. And if the Gulf of Mexico Corporation made a mistake, well, then they'd go broke and you get someone who did a better job. But if the BOE makes a mistake, do they lose money? No. So they're not part of the market nexus. There's no reason to believe that even if they were highly moral, that they would succeed. In other words, the morality is just a superficial criticism of this. There's a deeper criticism, that's the economic criticism. And the economic criticism is that these guys are flying blind. They have no way of knowing where to drill, what kind of drilling to do. There are all sorts of technical issues. Should you use tungsten? Should you use platinum? Should you use rubber? These guys don't know that.
Mm-hmm. Right. I had a good friend of mine who works in the natural gas industry. I'm based out of Houston, so a lot of us work in the energy industry. And she spent a horrifying several days with her regulator, her inspector, going through all the various things that they had to change just to meet code. And did that make them safer? No. It's just various changes that they had to make in what they were previously doing.
That's quite right. This is the way the bureaucrats work. They make sort of arbitrary, capricious rules, and they insist that you follow them. Let me give you another example from one of my recent books on privatizing roads. I hope we're not coming up toward the break, but if we are, I guess we can continue it.
We've got a couple minutes.
Okay. Now, the statistics on roads are that some 40,000 people a year die on the nation's highways. Now, that's a big number. The U.S. servicemen in all the years that we were in Vietnam were only about 50,000 deaths. And if you look at how many people are dying, U.S. servicemen, forget about Iraqis and Afghanis, we don't count their deaths. But even U.S. servicemen, it's just a couple of thousand. 9/11 was only 3,000. Katrina was only 1,100 or 1,500. This is 40,000 people a year who bite the dust because of the goddamn socialist highways. Mm. And is this on the news? Is Obama talking about this? No.
Of course not.
And what does the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration do? They have all these stupid rules about seat belts and, all sorts of silly things. Like they have this thing, 70-mile-an-hour zone? Mm-hmm. And it's perfectly legal to drive at 65 miles an hour in the left lane. Mm-hmm. And most people in a 70-mile zone, they want to drive, 75. I mean, if you go on the highway and you go at 70 miles an hour, virtually every car is now zipping right by you. Okay, so here you got some idiot sitting there in the left lane at 65, and he's just tootling along. And he's creating a ruckus because cars are trying to wiggle in and out to try to get past him. And, as far as the highway is concerned, they come up with these stupid signs on the road. How is that addressing the problem? So this is very similar to what you're saying. In other words, regulation is all of the piece, whether it's on the land, whether it's on the water, wherever it is, whether it's drugs, whether it's schools. They've got stupid, arbitrary, capricious rules that they insist on happening. The best example of this is, the airplane travel. They steal our toothpaste. They steal our nail clippers. Right? And they don't allow pilots to have guns.
Uh-huh. I know.
I mean, it's just very silly. Whereas what they should be doing in order to promote safety, well, I'll talk about this after the break.
Okay. Yeah, coming up, we'll just have our short little wrap-up segment. So thank you, Dr. Block. We'll be right back from these commercial breaks. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Radio Free Market. I'm here with Dr. Walter Block, and before you got cut off, you were telling us how federal regulations keep us safe in the air. So can you tell us more about that?
Well, I was denying that. I mean, federal regulations don't really keep us safe. They have these arbitrary and capricious things about a big toothpaste is no good, but a little toothpaste is fine, and fasten your seatbelts, and all these government regulation rules and stuff that don't do much. They don't allow airline pilots to carry guns, even though most of them are ex-military. It's just crazy. What they should do is get rid of this bureau, this government regulatory bureau, and let each airline implement its own policies. El Al, the airline from Israel, has been under attack more than most, and they haven't had one problem. Maybe El Al could rent out some of its people to American Airlines or what have you. I don't know, but you see, the problem is that if the safety board of airlines makes a mistake, they don't pay for it. They don't go out of business. Whereas if Southwest screws up, Southwest is toast. So you're going to get much better regulations from the private sector than you're going to get from the government. You're not going to get these arbitrary things about taking off your shoes, and now they have these pornographic X-ray machines and stuff.
Yeah, and at the same time, you could pick and choose which airline you wanted to go with based on the enforcement level that they have.
Right, and each airline would have different enforcement and would possibly change their enforcement. Look, if I were a terrorist, the thing I'd like most is if every airline had to do the same exact thing and it didn't change. Mm-hmm. Then maybe I could figure out something. Whereas if each airline were different and every airline changed its thing a little bit without getting permission from Washington, D.C., we'd be a lot safer than we are now. So this is just one more instance of regulation, government regulation gone amok.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely what's gone amok with this latest BP spill is the fact that Obama put a moratorium on an entire industry that props up the whole Gulf. What kind of message do you think this sends to oil companies?
Well, it's a very bad message. My friend Bob Higgs, who lives around here, said, look, industry is dangerous. Farmers get hurt by tractors, and, we don't have sweatshops anymore. We don't have Dickens kinds of factories, but people still get hurt in factories. People get hurt fishing. Just because you have a mess, we're denied perfection. We're not on the right side of the Garden of Eden for perfection. So when you have a problem and you just ban the entire industry, well, that's another instance of regulation going crazy. Look, Congress passes bad laws. Should we get rid of Congress? Wait, maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah, that could work. So how do you ultimately see this bill being politicized, meaning how do you see it affecting energy policy in this country?
Well, what's that expression? A tragedy is a bad thing to waste. That's what the...
a crisis, I thought it was.
Crisis is a bad thing to waste. What you have to do is pile on more regulation. That's what they're going to do. They just need an excuse for more regulation, and this is certainly an excuse. We're going to have more regulation. We're going to have more left-wing environmentalists as opposed to free enterprise environmentalists running around trying to run everyone's business. Happily, Obama's, approval ratings aren't that good, so maybe that'll slow him down a bit.
Yeah, maybe we'll get the next, regulatory agency in the coming up 4 years. But anyway, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Walter Block, for being with us and being my guest. I'm guest host Zoe Russell, and this is Radio Free Market. Please visit us on the web at radiofreemarket.com, where you can download this and all of our shows for free. So until next week, wherever you are, please stand up for freedom, and thank you for listening.